This has been a long 26 years. And what we have lost in hope and possibility, in energy, in health, in finances, all gone down a black hole.
I want to bring you up to date on what's happened since we did the first documentary film that was prepared for our presentation to county in January of 2016. Since then, the county ignored our concerns. They ignored our documentary film, and they determined that it was acceptable to them for the Dowells to enter into an agreement with the county directly.
And all those things got us nowhere. It was unbelievable to us, but we kept doing these steps thinking, well, this one will work. Well, this one will work, because it obviously should have and would have if there were any kind of honesty. But they were in so deep into Deschutes County, they'd made so many things like this blatant thing with the side yard setbacks. That would get the county in trouble big time. And the fact that we couldn't do a thing about it and they get away with it, what do you do? What do you do when you're in that situation?
We have tried over the course of the past many, many years to make sure the county understands that there is a prerequisite for an agreement. And that is that the Dowells have to admit that it wasn't the Coons' fault that there's a problem here.
I don't know if it gives the idea that we're just stubborn and rather than trapped. I can't believe that this is where I live, that I have all this space and nature and all of the happenings that are happening out there. And I don't have to turn it on and off like a TV. And I don't need to put it in my memory banks because it's always there and it's always doing something different. And yes, that gratitude never goes away. And the view never becomes humdrum or ignored. It's always, here's your gift for today. We came to this area, we'd seen it several years before when we were job hunting out here. And then when my father moved out here and we would come and stay with him bits and pieces of time, Bill really liked it a lot. He's more of a dry side person. I'm more of a water person. So it was where we decided to be in general, and then within that we had to do trade-offs. And so how far out of town we would be, how far we would have to go to get the mail. Would he be able to get the data coming in for his computers, for his job? And then there was mine, which is there has to be wildlife, lots and lots of wildlife. Okay, this was a project that my older brother strongly suggested. He said he had this concept for a long time and he wanted me to consider it, knowing that, especially after I got so ill, he said that he thought that it would be a really special thing if I would write about my experience and my somewhat quirky view of things and animals and my perspective of animals. He knew that I really didn't have very many options to do what I was used to doing and being out there with the animals, so he thought his idea would be that I could do this, and it would be for them too, the animals too. So I thought it's got to be in that way. It's got to be a story. It's got to be enough to bring people with me for the story, but also feel connected in a way, because I'm not going to be talking about dry stuff. I'm not going to be talking about facts and figures necessarily about the animals, or taking a position and saying this is how it is and this is how you should look at them and this is what they're like. So that's what I decided it would be my tack to take on this, and I hoped that it would work. I would also use my illustrations for it, and then I counted on it being still the voice of the animals. That was the part that was important, because we tend to think of us and them, and it really isn't. But the more we think of us and them, the fewer things in common we find useful. So that's the gateway to my comments as far as carrying on in this spirit of possibilities. So that's what's behind this. This is my kind of prologue, my opening salvo for my project, which I entitle Animals Are Us. How many of us have horses, dogs, cats, birds, and even fish as our dearest companions, and often our closest, most reliable connections? Why do so many favorite children's books have animals as their main characters? Why do children, urban or rural, notice animals even when most of us don't? Why, at a very early age, they do imitate animal sounds and laugh? Makes you wonder, right? Then there are all the many other creatures that live in us, around us, and below us, often unwelcome. In fact, we target many of them, whether benign, helpful, or pests, for instant destruction. Earth, our island home, is also home to so many forms of life, past, present, that in all the centuries humans have existed here, it is still uncertain how many species remain unknown to us. We, Homo sapiens, are one form of animal life. Even after many years of observation, education, and pondering cultural myths, religious beliefs, and scientific discoveries, I still have no personal opinion or clue on the origins of life on Earth. I feel, though, that whatever life is, and however it came about, is neither simple nor mundane. So, I'm on a lifelong quest, fueled by animal stories, curiosity, and a varied, sometimes impenetrable environment to see who I am, where I belong, and who or what is everything else. If you are interested, come along with me. Your stories and mine will probably intersect on many points. That's my prologue.
The last time most people saw Lee was in August of 2015, when she was at the county building when the session in front of the magistrate judge was going on. Lee very quickly started going downhill. The pain meds were increased. She was finally accepted into hospice, and by the 15th of September, she died.
The more you sit and do nothing, the more you see, and the more you feel at home. It's so just with no expectations, but being in the present, not daydreaming or figuring out what I'm going to make for dinner. It's just opening a certain door that anybody could do it if they wanted to. And the rewards are huge, even if you don't live in a special place. Every place you are, there's special things about it if you sit there. Long enough and be open to that open door. So that's a good thing too.
Lee's desire is for me to continue the road we've taken, and that is to make sure that the county and the Dowells understand that there must be an agreement between the Coons and the Dowells. And there also has to be an admission by the county that the county failed in its job of making sure that the wildlife habitat was protected the way it was supposed to be protected. The Cruden-Coon families, we are asking the county to admit that they, through their own nonfeasance and misfeasance, through the county's negligence, that they did not do what they were supposed to.
It's mixed up with that sadness from what's been happening with the county and the place down below us. It just doesn't, I try to just disconnect with that, but it's hard. And not knowing what's going to happen, if we can keep this property or not, is another issue as far as being out here on land and the way I would imagined it.
We are not going to sell first. If need be, I will give my property away. I'm going to give it away to somebody who's going to make sure that the ordinances, the laws, the intent of these parcels within this cluster are treated the way they were supposed to be treated.
But there were times during the time we were here that I was out here exactly the way I wanted to be, and it was the most fun I've ever had. And everything else was just so interesting than being in one place and seeing the incremental changes and coming out and seeing what's different here and who's doing what and who's coming through and are they going to let me see them? Are they going to come visit?
Lee was one of those freshmen, and I kept my eye on her, saw her in one of the dining rooms, but we got to know each other at least well enough so that I could ask her if I could come over and see her in the dorm. So she said sure. So I went over, and this is back in the 60s, so back then there was this panel on the side of the wall. Somebody wanted to talk to one of the girls who was in the dorms. You had to have that upperclassman press their button. I had Lee buzzed, and I went and sat down in one of the couches. And I was expecting her to walk around in front of me. But she didn't walk around in front of me. Instead, she walked around in back, and she put her hand immediately in back of me on the back of the couch and literally jumped over the couch so that she sat down right next to me. And it's like, man, this is a woman after my heart.
She was the freshman. I was with Bill, he was the upperclassman. I was just along for the sort of the ride. But that color, look at the color of that water. It's just beautiful. We just became very good friends because we had a lot of things in common. I'm in awe of, first of all, they're coming out from Ohio and they're deciding to do what they did. Hell of a risk, but boy, they had determination. It's just amazing that they were able to tackle what they did. I had three things that came to mind that I would wish for Bill. Health, number one. If you don't have your health, we just don't have a quality of life. And he experienced that firsthand with Lee. The second thing would be to have a challenge every day. It doesn't have to be a big challenge, but something to occupy his mind. The third thing is perhaps a companion, and maybe it would give him additional ways to expand himself in other areas. Those are the three things that I thought would be wonderful for him. He's my dear friend, yes.
When before the roof got done, when I just had the walls up, and then the next step was going to be the roof, I was just getting used to the walls being up. And even though the walls are full of windows, I didn't like the walls. I just liked being able to have nothing between me and this, and knowing how totally impractical that was. But it was a hard thing to adjust to the walls. And then, because we're on a major flyway for birds going between Alaska and north of that, and down to the South America and north and south of that the flyway was right over the top of our roof. The peak of our roof was usually right in the middle of the flocks, and it'd be both the big geese, the different kinds of geese, the snow geese and the Canada geese, but it also would be some of the songbirds and some of the other smaller birds. So not only would I see them going straight overhead, talking usually, but when the moon was up and I was just finishing up at night, you could see them against the moon in the whole sky. And so I'd be seeing the Milky Way and the moon, and then watching these migrating songbirds go by. It was like, no, I don't want a roof. No. Somehow, maybe I could put some big glass thing up. I was just trying to figure out how I could not have a roof. We hired a guy to help me, and he hired his son-in-law, and he and the son-in-law and Bill would do setting in each individual rafter, because that's the way it had to be done. Each rafter had to be cut 6 different directions, 6 different angles, very complicated. So it's an exciting process, and at the end of that, also, which I didn't know at the time, is that builders are supposed to put a tree at the peak, and then they're supposed to, have donuts or celebrate the completion of the roof. So while it didn't have any shingles or anything on it, it still was. It had the plywood up. It was complete. So this was the completed structure. When I drove in that morning early to do the next part of the job, they were all sitting there on the edge of their truck. They're going, "What are you doing? What's that up on the peak?" I said, "What's that tree doing up on the peak?" And they kindly explained to me that this was something that all the builders did. So I had to do it too. So it was great. It was great. But I couldn't see those things anymore. And it's not the same walking outside as just being right in the center of it and looking up and having nothing impeding your view. So that was kind of sad, but ever grateful for the roof.
Sadness, very sad, very lonely. There's a lot of people to talk to, but nobody who understands, can reflect back to me the positive way that she would reflect. She can't do it right now. Okay, trust. We want it's going to take a long time to figure out how to deal with that vacuum. It was sliding from one plateau to another lower plateau, another lower plateau, just never recovering fully. She would be able to rise to the occasion, where if we had to go to see an attorney or be involved with negotiations or something, she would rise to the occasion. She would gear up her adrenaline flow so that she could be up for that session.
Okay, here we go.
And immediately afterward, she would crash. And that crash might last 12 hours, and later on it would last for 2 days. She always tried to think of the positive things. At the end of the day, we would, no matter how frustrating it was, we would always say, what do we have to be thankful for? We always had something positive to say. Usually it was about each other, being able to thank the other person for giving us the smile.
Okay.
Have I ever called Bill grumpy?
Yes, I think I have referred to his moods from time to time as being grumpy.
And it is still just as sad, just as heart-wrenching. Past couple days it was difficult because I was away from home. When Rick was kind enough to get me to the hospital, there's this very nice intaking nurse. I'm not sure how to describe them, but there's a nurse before and there's a nurse after, and this is the one that was helping me get prepared. She asked me, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm okay." What's wrong?" I said, "That chair's empty." I'm sitting up on the gurney. I'm saying, "That chair's empty." Oh, she said she knew right away what I was talking about. "Where is she?" I said, "She died recently." "Yes." "She would have been here, wouldn't she have?" "Yes." "Mr. Kuhn, may I give you a hug?" "Yep, you can give me a hug." We were instructed to get communication with hospice. After Lee died, as part of their work ethic, one of the things they do is make us psychologists available. It's just I'm trying to honor what it was that Lee and I were working on and how to get to that point as quickly as possible. And being able to talk to someone about the best way to move forward, to be able to talk about and deal with the still ugly issues that we have to face, that I have to face. Like I said, I've had 4 meetings with her. It's a process. It's ongoing. It's going to be several more months before I hope what happens happens. We picked this location. We picked this spot. We searched and searched and searched and finally found it. We like the restrictions on the property. Most people don't even know that this is the Tumalo Winter Deer Range. It's not just unique from the county's point of view, it's unique from the state's point of view. The state has what's called a wildlife area overlay that they insisted be put on this area. It is an invisible force field that says, whether there are signs or not, this is a special area. But you've got local government, state government, and federal government all saying this is a special area. No signs to say so. What we found out is that, so what?
And Bill and I have talked about what it is we want the county to do, what it is that would be simple, what it is that would be fair, what it is that would make us move forward. And one of the things that we've struggled with all these years has been trying to make sense out of what the county's doing, because it makes no sense.
Number 12 is the communication that you sent us in response to our offer to try to find solutions. And would you please read it?
You have your perspectives on the world and we have ours, and they are obviously very different. But this situation all comes down to something very simple. No piece of paper, from a signed agreement all the way down to a court order, is going to protect either party from the havoc the other could wreak if so desired. We are offering you our best efforts, which, if respected and reciprocated, is the optimal situation you could possibly ask for from a neighbor, be it us or anyone else. And it's more, quote, protection than any piece of paper could give either of us. We have given this situation a lot of thought, and quite honestly, based on the position you've taken and the perspective you've presented, we don't feel there is anything to be gained by pursuing this matter further. However, in hopes of getting a deal done, we'll give you X. And acknowledge that by accepting this, there's no longer an issue for you. Given that there's no longer an issue for anybody else, there's no longer an issue for you about where the house is located. To try to put something substantial forward to you to get this over with, because we're sick of dealing with it, and so are you.
There were 4 sisters and a brother, and parents, of course. We would take trips west from Ohio. We would travel west and see the wonders of the West. And I fell in love with the West.
So it's probably the only place like it in the world. And for good or ill, I think that's true, which is unique, but it also makes it hard to give a value to financially. And if somebody's looking to sell it, it's a negative, but everything else about it is a positive. And I know most people, they open up the door, whether they're coming in to get out of the rain or visiting us or coming here to visit, whatever their reason, they step inside the front door and they stop and they always, without saying anything else, they say, "This is beautiful. This is really beautiful." this is really nice. It feels so good. Everybody, the cops, you know, whoever comes to the door. So that makes me feel like something special has been created here. And I like that. Something that's good. And other people feel that about it too. That, to me, is about the best you can get.